Hi, this is your Sapnil Bharti and welcome to another episode of State of Energy. We are here in Paris for the LF Energy Summit and today we have with us Nayan Lal from IT Delhi. Nayan, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you here. Let's start with what brought you to this event. So talk about the whole kind of story of Dr. Shuli Goodman's Memorial Fund, which is sponsoring a lot of folks to come here, attend the event, and talk to the ecosystem players.
Sure. So I'm here for attending the summit. So, especially for attending the summit, I've traveled all the way from Delhi to Paris and also experienced the Parisian vibes. So, I'm loving it here. The past few days have been amazing. Yesterday, I had a chance to meet and network with a lot of interesting people who are working in my domain. So, that was one of the main motivations to come here to meet like minded people and tell them more about the work which I'm doing and about exploring the collaborative potential. And I'm lucky to be among the scholars, the Dr. Goodman, Shuli Goodman scholars.
Let's talk about some of the work that you're doing in this space.
At IIT Delhi, my thesis is on, I'm working on incentivization of flexibility and coordination measures using Urja token blockchain. So that is the approach which I've taken. Uh, so we let me explain to you about the problem which we are going to face in future. So we know that the penetration of renewables is increasing in the grid, especially when you consider the microgrid environment. As the scale of renewables in the microgrid increase, the need for flexibility measures uh, becomes more and more. So, in order to incentivize these measures, we need newer and we need to explore mechanisms how we can maybe incentivize them. So this is one of my approaches. Through my thesis, I am trying to uh, inquire uh, how can we better incentivize them. So I've developed a token, named it as Urja token. So in it means energy tokens for incentivizing the behavior change of prosumers. So that is what the thesis is all about.
What kind of changes you're seeing? Because if you look at the traditional model of electric generation and distribution, it was waterfall model. The electrons were or current were flowing in just one direction. Now, because of solar, electric vehicles, batteries, renewables, the whole dynamic is changing. We are putting a lot of things back into the grid, which also mean the way grid operate is also changing. So, what kind of behavioral changes you are seeing as you work on this thesis?
You're absolutely right. We are seeing an change. We are seeing the energy transition take place. So we are moving from a centralized grid environment where electricity is generated at the far off power station and is transmitted long distances through transmission lines and being distributed towards a more decentralized grid. So in that environment where the energy resources are coming from uh, multiple energy resources, distributed energy resources, as it's called. So we need to start developing mechanisms to support that, build the grid in order to support such a distributed energy systems. So as the distributed energy systems are coming up, it will create a lot of pressure on the grids in terms of stability requirements, the reinforcement requirements which are required to sustain the system, to ensure that the demand and supply balance always occurs, because that's the beauty of the electrical grids, that the demand should always match the supply. So in order to support the system, we need to come up with measures that can um, uh, incentivize the behavior change uh, so as to support the grid.
When you talk about behavioral changes, what do you mean by that, and whose behavior is changing?
Here we are trying to tap into the behaviors of the prosumers. The prosumers at the LV level in my project. right now. So the prosumers can offer a lot of flexibility to the grid. So for example, if you have, say, an electric vehicle, then uh, you can utilize it in certain manner that can benefit the grid. So in order to so that is one of the uh, energy resource. So if we consider this form behavior, it can create a huge impact on the grid system. So we are trying to see how much can we tap into the behaviors of the prosumers so as to integrate more energy participants onto the grid, and so as to enable them to participate more in the energy system. And right now we have measures to make them become a part of the grid. So but I what I have inquired what I have argued for in my thesis as well is that the amount of incentive which they get, which the prosumers get, is minuscule to the amount of actual contribution which they are doing for ensuring that energy supply is ensured in the grid. So especially when you consider the microgrid scenario, where the grid operator needs to ensure the system balance, there the need for flexibility measures becomes even more heightened. So their prosumer behavior can be changed in order to uh, help them balance the grid. In order to help the grid operator balance the grid. So yeah, that is the idea. Like, how can we influence the behavior of the prosumers in order to help the grid, so that the prosumers start acting in a way that helps the grid as such. So they behave in a grid friendly manner. That was the idea.
How would you define microgrid, and how different is it from the larger grid? Is it a subset of a grid? It's a separate thing.
So yeah, microgrids are like, uh, you can define it as like a single controllable entity, or it's connected energy resources, yeah, which can act as a single controllable entity. And that has a certain amount of sources, like energy resources which are supplying energy to the grid, like solar, maybe rooftop solar, or other solar plants, locally generated wind, small wind farms, etc.
So what is the scale of, is it like what would be the example? Because we do understand grid, that's a large scale thing. When we look at microgrid, are we talking about, like, just a local community where there are 20 houses in let's say in a county or a district or a village, or we are talking about something different? So I just to just give an example. Hey, this is what microgrid looks like.
Right. So in my thesis, I have used a case study where I've taken a German village. So a German village that has a lot of renewable energy resources. That is the data was provided by my institute, TU Munich. So I was the Dart Cosby Scholar last year. So I had the opportunity to spend the last 7 months, from September 2022 to March this year, uh, at TU Munich. So I was among the 5 students who got selected from IIT Delhi to spend the time at TU Munich here. And they provided me with the data of the microgrid of the German village. And we could simulate the two scenarios where the flexibility and coordination measures are used versus when they are not used, considering a small system, energy system. So that has certain amount of resources, energy resources that supply energy, and certain energy resources that demand energy. Like electric vehicle might be something that is demanding energy, or maybe heat pumps require energy, etc., etc. Or and sources of energy might include the renewable energy sources or other sources, and they are operating uh, under certain constraints, and the grid operator is the one who is supposed to ensure that the demand and supply are balanced, and that is the system. And it may or may not be connected to the centralized grid. So if it is not connected, it is called an island uh, system, like island microgrid system. And if it is connected, then it can also work in conjunction with the centralized grid, so it supporting the centralized grid. So that is also possible for a microgrid to be connected with the centralized system, helping the centralized system as such. And that is the case which I've taken in my project as well.
And as you were talking about the Urja token, can you talk about the role of open source? Or traditionally things were black boxes, everything was proprietary, but now everything is mostly white boxes. When you look at microgrid, it could be like Raspberry Pi, or smaller IoT devices. So talk about what role you're seeing of software and open source in this scenario.
In general, the prosumers that are acting in the microgrid, their data needs to be uh, available to the grid operator, at least for balancing the grid, because he or she, the grid operator, is responsible for ensuring that the system balance is maintained at all times, and the grid constraints are not violated. So the Urja token blockchain market mechanism is more centralized in terms of uh, the utilization aspect as such. So the grid operator is utilizing the tokens to nudge the behavior of the prosumers that are there in the grid. So that is the mechanism which the project looks at. So it's not like the prosumers can have a fair, transparent mechanism to ensure that the behavior change which they are doing is fairly compensated, and the grid operator can ensure that he or she gets the flexibility as and when he or she requires. So it's a win-win for both the parties, the grid operator as well as the prosumers, because prosumers are getting more than what they can in the traditional systems, and the grid operator can ensure that the system stays balanced, and he does not need to reinforce the grid and incur that extra cost.
When you work on this thesis and when you talk to a lot of players, how far do you think they are in this digital transformation progress? Is it a lot of work is still to be done, or it has kind of reached the maturity curve there?
We are seeing a lot of projects being successfully implemented. This morning, I got to know that in Rome, a team from RWTH Aachen successfully implemented a system which had the blockchain component integrated into their system. So the DSO adopted the system, and then they are working now to scale it up further in, say, Milan, or now they are also working in Germany. So that was eye-opening for me to see how the progress is going on in other parts of the world. And now slowly, as the technology matures, maybe we can see it getting scaled up further. But again, this is what I always say, that our focus should not be on the tool, which is the blockchain. I had the opportunity to go to the World Economic Forum also this year. So the crux of my visit was that we should look at the human issues that are plaguing the society rather than the tools such as blockchain. So if tomorrow, if I see another way of maybe achieving the same goal of sustainability, ensuring the grid stays balanced, so I may take that route. But right now, given the current circumstances, I feel that the route through Urja tokens might be the right solution which we are looking for. So that is why I tried to approach that in my thesis, and thankfully I got the approval from both my professors, and now I'm about to submit my thesis, and I'm looking forward to defending it on 7th, the coming 7th year.
And thank you so much for sitting down with me today and talk about your thesis, your project, what you learned, and what people can learn. Thanks for sharing all those insights. And as you said, maybe we'll see each other again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.